All right, so everybody knows all guests on ZASLOW Show 2.0 are brought to us by the official beer of the program, Johnny Cuba, European roots with a Caribbean soul. Get yourself a refreshing German lager in a can. You can pick up a six-pack of Johnny Cuba, your local Sedanos, Presidente, Winn-Dixie. If you don't know where around you is selling Johnny Cuba, you send me a message, my man Juan. He'll tell you exactly where you can pick up a six-pack of Johnny Cuba. Always drink responsibly. And, of course, don't forget Johnny Cuba's mantra, stay tranquilo. Our pal is Fox Sports' Craig Minervini. Excuse me, Bally Sports' Craig Minervini. It's hard to keep track these days, Craig. I feel like it's changing every few months. You have to excuse me there. Bally Sports' Craig Minervini joining us here as, I mean, what a tremendous timing. We've had such an incredible... How do all the stars align at the same time? We had the Miami Hurricanes basketball. We had the FAU basketball. You got the Miami Heat. You got the Florida Panthers. And now, I mean, I understand they made the postseason in 2020, a 60-game season. That's not real. But for the first time in 20 years, going back to 03, it feels like you got a Marlins team that's making a playoff push here. I mean, how about all the stars aligning there, Craig?
Zaz, first of all, we deserve it. I mean, we've been through a lot down here, especially on the baseball and the hockey side. So that's great. Nova, don't forget Nova. Didn't they win the Division II?
Yes. Yep.
As well in hoops? Yep. It's unbelievable. But yeah, it's great. It's great for baseball. It's just like, I think basketball, the Heat have had great moments all along. Mm-hmm. They have their audience. And the Dolphins, albeit on a little down, then they come back in the playoffs, they always have their audience. But for hockey, and for baseball, Zaz, they have to win to reconnect with the generations in the past or generation in the past that saw some winning or championships, but not this kind of success. So it's big for the game, wider picture, South Florida baseball interest or ratings. I know there are top 7 games on Bally this month alone and only getting better. So that's a good sign. At the ballpark, if you haven't been out there, great atmosphere.
I was there 2 days ago on 4th of July. Yeah. I took my family. It's about 17,000, 18,000 people. But it's funny because when you put 17,000, 18,000 people in that ballpark, meaning pretty much the lower level is packed, it looks packed and that place gets loud.
Yes, it's loud. The roof, you could have 15 in there and have a loud crowd with the roof. There's no doubt about it, which is good for the players because it's atmosphere. They're going on the road and playing in front of big crowds. Atlanta's selling out every night. You come home, and they had 25,000 for Pittsburgh. I mean, when's the last time we had 25,000 for the Pirates? So they're starting to – the people are starting to get excited. It's good to see because that's the one thing – and I remember Sampson used to say this. The one thing we haven't answered is, can the Marlins draw if they win in this ballpark? And right now the answer seems to be yes, they can.
It's a great point. I think there was 1 year in the new ballpark where they finished like a bunch of games over 500. Obviously, did not make the playoffs, but we've never had this kind of season in the new ballpark where you're starting to see some people come out, but it's still only the beginning of July. If we can get to like the beginning of August and they're still sitting in the position that they're in, I mean, it could be a really, really exciting atmosphere for home games.
Absolutely. They had a couple of years there. They were, or at least they were, let's say, competitive and in the hunt in early September. Not the last week of September, but very early, but only 1 or 2, I think. So this is actually the best start they've had in team history now. They have matched the 97 team that went 51-37 after 88 games. So they've matched that. It is still a lot of baseball to go. But there's nothing like it when it gets exciting. You start in all these games. This weekend, for example, it's a big matchup against the Phillies.
They're really taking advantage. Now we saw what happened with the Braves. I mean, there's no shame. It stinks that they got outscored the way they did for the weekend, but there's no shame in understanding it. The Braves are on one level, and really everyone else is not quite on that level. But
absolutely,
the Marlins have done a great job of beating up, of feasting on the bad teams, which is what they're doing right now with a chance to sweep in a 4-game series against the Cardinals. So, yeah, you could make the case, hey, that's what good teams do. They beat up on the bad teams. And at the same time, a clubhouse sees themselves 14 games over 500. I got to feel like there's a lot of confidence in that room right now.
Absolutely. If you take the Mets and the Braves out of it, the Marlins are 25 games over. They're 48-23 against everybody not named the Braves or the Mets. Remember, they played the Mets early in the year where people thought the Mets would beat the team, maybe the team to beat. They did beat, Minnesota. They beat some teams that have been better. They handled the Phillies pretty well early. But you're right. Lately, when the schedule finally came back to them, they had one of the toughest schedules the first probably 6 weeks to 2 months of the season. They have beaten these teams. Today they go for, I think it's their eighth sweep of the season. Their franchise record is 10 for a full season. And now this would be the first 4-game sweep, and they got Perez on the mound. So no question, confidence. The manager is just, they're sensational. I mean, I'm not saying that because I got to know him a little bit. Or he's just having a great rookie season.
What do we like so much about Schumacher?
Well, let's look at last night, for example. De La Cruz is not considered a slow runner. He's probably a little better than average, but he's not slow by any means. Gurriel is 38 years old, runs pretty well for a big guy, and an older guy. He actually holds his own. So what does Schumacher do? He puts in Garrett Hampson, who's very fast, at second base, not at first base, not to go in the winning run, but the tying run at second base. What does Hampson do? Who's speedy, by the way, just called up, again, a former big leaguer for years, back up with the ball club. He takes off for third because he recognizes he's a good base runner, excellent base runner, better than De La Cruz. Sees the pitcher's only looking at him one time and throwing, looks at him. So by the third or fourth time, he says, I'm going for third. As he's going for third, that's when Wendell puts the ball in play. It's the only reason he scored. He was already at third. In fact, he was past third by the time the pitcher got the ball. The pitcher did not look over there. Maybe didn't even know he was running, so didn't think it would be a big deal. If the guy's on second, he's only going to third at worst. And Hampson scores. I mean, the other night, he takes Wendell out. They bring in the righty Palante. Wendell's up, hit 364 in June. You're going to let him hit lefty, righty, right? No. He brings in Gurriel, the righty, because Palante's averaging a batting average 100 points more against righties than lefties. And what does Gurriel do? Now, look, the player's got to pull it off, right? He hits double down the line and scores a monster run. It's moves like that. Against the grain, maybe you wouldn't think of it. Gumption to win today and worry about tomorrow. And he's been in a winning environment, and you can see it is a big factor. He's the manager of the year, in my opinion, in the National League.
How about that finish last night? I mean, obviously super lucky, but it's like, I mean, that was little league shit. Craig, he wasn't even close to the first baseman there. Like, that was bad news Bears.
It's not the Cardinal way, right? I listened to the Cardinal broadcast, and it was like, I had to listen to it this morning. I had to listen to Kyle's call and the radio call. John Rooney, the great John Rooney, does the Cardinal games. And it's shocking. Actually, Cardinal, one thing they have done, they're one of the better defensive teams in the league. I think they're third in the league, but they butchered that one. But again, Hampson running pressure. Wendell always out of the box, head down. Pitcher, it's so funny, but pitchers have a problem when especially they throw 100 miles an hour to the plate, 60 feet, 6 inches away. And then they get these plays where they're 25 feet away from the first baseman, and they can't have a catch like you can have with your son on the lawn. For some reason, all of a sudden, how do I throw it? How hard? And he throws it, 10 feet over the first baseman? I mean, the first baseman didn't move. Nobody in right field. Gurriel, 38 years old, scores from first base on the play. And that's the season. You need some luck too, right? Chance favors the prepared man. When you're in a good position, sometimes luck is on your side. And they need some luck, and they're mixing the two right now, and it's nice.
So we got Yuri Perez looking for the 4-game sweep tonight. His last outing, it was one of those games against the Braves, and he got rocked. I mean, look, he was totally due for a big league ass kicking, right? So we got that out of the way, and now let's get back to business, right?
That's right. Mel Stottlemyre said to him, apparently the next day, he said, "Hey, let me ask you a question." And Yuri went, "What's that?" He goes, "Did the sun come up today?"
Yeah.
Yes, it did. He said, look, you're not the first. Every guy goes through it. You're going to have more of these. They happen. Basically, don't worry about it. Everybody's beating up on the Braves are beating up on everybody else. So don't worry about that. He's been nothing short of sensational. And, he's had an unbelievable year. The innings thing, we'll see what they're going to do. I don't know, but I like their chances here going with Yuri Perez today and get this sweep before the Phillies come in. But that Philly series, they're hot, Zaz. It's going to be fun this weekend.
So are we expecting, I guess we would be like 8 days away at this point, or are we expecting it to be a short, and I know we got the All-Star coming up, are we expecting it to be a short stint away for Jazz?
I'm not sure about that because that everybody, I've never had this injury, but the intercostal, the oblique, most people say it's a month. But
Wow.
they didn't say that with Jazz. But I'm saying if you talk to people who've had the injury, sometimes on the light side, it's 2-3 weeks at a minimum, if not a month. But the team has not said that. It seems like they caught maybe a little bit of a break in it. It's just one of those spots where I was talking to Niner yesterday, and he said when he had it, it was a month. Baseball people seem to speak that language. Oh, intercot a month. They got dates on it, and you're like, how do you know that? But it seems like it always comes true. So we'll see. But it looked great to see Dane Myers get an opportunity. Really, unfortunately, Jonathan Davis go down because he's doing a
Yeah.
great job at center field.
If we get to the end of this month with the deadline, what if the Marlins are going to make a substantial move, which I think there's probably fans out there who are saying, you know what, I'll buy in when the owner opens up his wallet a little bit and we make a winning move at the end of this month to put this team in a position. And I understand that stance. If the Marlins were to make a substantial move to kind of go for it, what would they be looking for, you think?
Well, I think for one thing, maybe look, another experienced bat is what I would say. I'm not even sure what position you're talking about. Some maybe depend on Jazz's health too, which hopefully is on the better side of that. Again, I don't know exactly, but let's say it's a shorter injury and you feel like you're okay there. But you think you could use one more big time bat somewhere. They have the offense has definitely picked it up. There's no question. They're way better. They've won 26 games in the last 38. Took them 50 something to win the 25 to begin with. And that's because of the offense. The pitching's been pretty good all year. The bullpen's been really good. I don't even
Bullpen's
know if
been
they need a
great,
bullpen
right?
arm.
Bullpen's been great.
Me looking at it, or last night I'm looking at Puck coming in. He's been great, but I'm watching his matchups. They're all against right-handers. A lot of times the righty closers, to me anyway, seems like you're still going to get two righties. They're not going to take out Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt because you have a right-hander pitching as a closer. So it's a little unusual. You've had them over the years, Franco and a bunch of lefties, Chapman, that come in and are good closers. So maybe, and I'm not saying for the closer because Puck's done a great job, maybe a right-handed arm. I'm just thinking out loud in the bullpen, but bullpen's been great. Obviously, Segura's coming on. You certainly would look over there, but he's a proven player, so I'm not sure they even needed that. I would say a bat, and wherever that bat is. And, Gabby was saying one more starter. These guys have done a pretty good job from a starting standpoint, unless you're trying to grab some innings along the way. So, but there's no question, every team that's in it tries to add at the break, no matter how good you are. You could always get better. It depends is how many teams Zaz are in this deal.
Yeah.
And, what do you want to give up? Because they're going to have to give up a big piece.
Now, of course, with the Marlins leading the wild card spot, we're, intrigued by the new format, when it comes to the playoffs. Do you like the new format?
No. You know what I don't like about it? Here's what I don't like. The fact that the first round, I like the fact that there's an extra team. I don't like the fact that the first round, you potentially do not have a home game. I think it's very short-sighted for baseball. If you wind up as one of the lower, I think it's the lower two wild cards, not the top wild card, but if you're wild card 5, 6 seed, you don't get a home game.
Right.
So you could wind up going to the other ballpark, let's say lose a tough 3-game series, and your fans didn't get to see you once. It seems ridiculous. Pay for the flight. I don't understand it. Even if you have to play the game in the afternoon and fly at night,
right,
and play the next night.
Yeah.
Even if you had to do that, 4:00 game
happens all the time. Happens all throughout the year.
Even if you had to do that, the expense to me of not having a home game, the problem is this probably they don't want to play the wild card lower seed the first game at their ballpark, and then the last two at the higher seed. I'm guessing. And they don't
remember that's how it used to be when the Marlins first made the playoffs. That's terrible.
They changed the rule because if you remember the Marlins won the first 2 games at home and went to San Francisco and clinched in San Francisco. They had more home games than the Giants, who were the first place team.
That's not right.
So they changed the rule. I think it was right after that, in fact, in '97. But I would like to see somewhere or another the wild card get a guaranteed home game. But look, right now, if things ended like this, the Marlins would be the top wild card, and they would host the first round series.
I've
I
never
believe.
been to a postseason baseball game. Like I'm desperately hoping they make the playoffs. I've never been to a Major League Baseball playoff game.
Yeah, yeah. Right now, you got the because the third place, the third home team would host against seed 6, and then the fourth seed would host. Isn't this great? We're talking about seedings
Yeah,
now in
it
July.
is cool. It
But
is cool.
listen, a long way to go. And every time I asked Skip yesterday, I asked him about 50 wins, and the first thing he said was a lot of season left. And we've seen a lot of teams play well for 100. It's what you do in the last 62. And, it's sort of everybody gets the 50 wins. Okay, now what are you doing after that? I'll give you the 50. You're going to go 50 and 50. What do you do in the other 62?
Everyone's going to lose 50. Everybody's going to win 50. What do you do with the rest of the games?
Except the Oakland A's. Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah. We'll see what happens, but you certainly like the way they're playing, and obviously with their pitching, they should be. They are. Get this one: when they give up 3 runs or less, they've had 40 games. They give up 3 runs or less. They're 37-3. I mean, wow. When they keep the other team down to 3 runs or less,
wow,
it's put it in the bank.
Yeah.
So they've had a lot of numbers here, and again, the offense is just starting to click now. They're second in the league in batting average. When's the last time we've said that?
Yeah. It's really exciting. It's fun. And it's just so like we're going through one of the best, if not the best sports period we ever have been through here in South Florida because of all of it coming together. And lastly, I want to get a little bit from you on the Panthers. What a phenomenal 2 months, between end of April, May, beginning of June. What a fantastic run. I mean, like, I'll remember it the rest of my life now. And we don't have to talk about just 96 anymore. We get to talk about 23. Like, that's crazy. More than half my life, I've only talked about 96. And it's not just about 96 anymore. Like, I was so, oh my God, it was as thrilling. Look, I've been part of Heat Championships on broadcast, and being able to experience this Panther run that we've all waited 27 years for. It was and they didn't even finish it off. It was as enjoyable experience as a fan I've ever had, Craig.
Yeah, that's great. And you know what I think of too, Zaz, is not so much you and me in this, although we deserve it too. We've been around here a long time, but it's the 20-year-old fan who wasn't around then, who only heard about it from his father, Van Beesbrook, and this goalie and the Rats. And now they're in on it now. And that only helps, especially, again, for hockey, which is a tough sport if you haven't been associated with it. You've never been in a rink before. It's hard on TV to immediately become a fan. You got to get to a game. You start winning and start realizing who these guys are, and you're hooked. To me, it's the greatest. And the same thing in baseball here is that you start to win. Okay, now you got my interest a little bit. I'm starting to peak. I'm watching BALLY Sports games. I'm going to the ballpark. By the way, if you live east, and I don't work for Brightline, I don't know if I hope you don't have Tri-Rail as a sponsor. What a way to go to the game. I've done it on the
I've never been. I actually considered I was going to go to the NBA Finals if the Heat forced a game 6. I was planning on trying the Brightline. I've never done it.
It is unbelievable. First of all, it's so much nicer than the smoking trains I used to go on Long Island Railroad to go to Madison Square Garden, or have to come back at 5 o'clock in a smoking train. It's clean, it's top notch, and if you're east, it's 17 minutes from Aventura, maybe 25 from Fort Lauderdale to get to Miami, and they got a shuttle waiting to bring you over to the ballpark.
Yeah, it's convenient enough. Like the shuttle's there, it'll take you over.
It's a game changer. West Palm, Boca, all the way down. If you're east, the only thing is if you're west, you'd have to drive east.
Yeah, I'm west.
So I don't know if it makes sense, but I'll tell you what, I've taken it 4 times, and again, I don't do any
I want to try it. But I want to try it.
It really is. I'm telling that just for your listeners, that your viewers, that it's a good opportunity if you want to take the train to the ball game.
Yeah. Craig, tell everybody what time they can catch you tonight as the Marlins look for the 4-game sweep.
Sure. Yeah, we're on at 6 o'clock. Gabby Sanchez and I will be doing the game. Tommy Hutton on the call with Paul, and Jessica will have all the sideline and interviews and whatever. And at 6 o'clock, BALLY Sports Florida. And again, it's just been fun. And let's keep it a nice little finish here before you don't want to have a dud here.
Yeah.
And the last thought is, coming off that Brave series, this is how you want to respond.
Yeah.
By winning those 3 games right away.
Yeah.
Nice job.
Yeah, really good job. Thank you, Craig, for jumping on with us. I appreciate it.
Anytime, buddy.